Continuing our study of Ezra and the return from captivity this week, we continue to find that God never forgets His promises. And now, here's Pastor Todd.
Thank you for joining us for the midweek message. We're in the book of Ezra. We're going through the return from captivity. We're using Harold Wilmington's Guide to the Bible as a main focus of our study. We're going to be going through the books of Ezra and Nehemiah, Esther, Haggai, Zechariah, and Malachi. And as we go through these, we'll try to talk about how God moved during this 140-year period of time, and it's a powerful, powerful look at what God does. We're in Ezra. We looked at chapter 1, and now we're in chapter 2. Chapter 2 of Ezra is a genealogy. It is who returned. And you can imagine the pride there is in looking up your family's name in here and saying, oh, wow, I see my family's name right here, how they returned from captivity. And they were one of the ones who went back to rebuild the temple and rebuild the walls of Jerusalem. There's no way I can read all these names, not and keep your attention and butcher half of them. That's just not something I'm good at. But there are a few things that I do want to point out about this. Now, if you have the time to read Ezra chapter 2, I would encourage you to. It's pretty incredible. There are some incredible family names that are here and a few things that I'm going to point out very quickly. First of all, we see verse 1 says, "Now these are the people of the providence who came back from captivity of those who had been carried away, whom Nebuchadnezzar the king of Babylon had carried away to Babylon, and who returned to Jerusalem and Judah, every one to his own city." Now quickly, I want you to realize how many people we're talking about. 42,360 people returned, plus some of the servants. So when you talk about this return, it's not the 2.6 million that came out of Egypt. When Moses led that group across the desert, that's 2.6 million strong. This is 43,000 people, 42,360 people. A much smaller group. Also notice that they don't all return to rebuilding the temple. Some of them return to their own cities. In other words, they return back to Israel to reclaim what had been their families. And it's interesting when they talk about this, what happens over the next basic 100 years is that they give to the temple, they give to the rebuilding the temple, but it's never enough to truly rebuild the temple and to rebuild the walls. There was things given and there was support given and they were excited to be able to go home. But there is a whole lot of people that were just focused on rebuilding their own lives, rebuilding their own families. But let's look at this, how they came out, how they began following this decree from Cyrus, how he had opened up the door, and how 42,000 people began to return home. First of all, we see their leader, Zerubbabel. In verse 2 it says, "Those who came with Zerubbabel were Jeshua, Nehemiah, Seraiah, and Reiah, Mordecai, Bilshan, Mizpar, Bigvai, Rehum, and Benaiah. The number of the men of the people of Israel, the people of Parash, 2,172. So when you see this, Zerubbabel has a group around him. He is a leader. He is the priest that is going back. And it's interesting because he's not going back to be king. He's going back to rebuild. And he is the leader of this group. And it is a diverse group. Saying that it's diverse is not even touching the beginning of the subject. He has his hands full. Now, one of the things that we see in other books, you see God directly speaking to him. See, he didn't just choose to be the leader. God calls him out. When Cyrus opens the door, God calls him out. He begins to lead. And we see in other books that God literally speaks to him along the way, reminding him time and again, hey, I'm with you. I called you out, and this is the task that I've given you. Because I want to tell you, this diverse group of people who I cannot even correctly pronounce the names and cannot imagine all the different family members and leaders and all the things that go on, Zerubbabel had to be reminded, God is with you. The second thing I notice, it starts in verse 36. They maintain their roles. It's often said that men are known by the work that they do. When you introduce a man, what you usually say is his job title. This is Todd Haley. He's pastor of Oak Grove Baptist Church. If you introduce a woman, you usually introduce a person. It's not their job title, it's their family. Oh, let me tell you about her husband. Let me tell you about her kids. Let me tell you about her grandkids. It's kind of funny how we sometimes do that. In this particular case, though, these families are recognized for their roles in the kingdom, in the temple work. So what we see in verse 36 is the priest. It says the priest, the son of Jedediah, of the house of Jeshua, 973. And then he begins to list some of the other priests that are there. But you see that the priestly role is represented. Then you have the Levites in verse 40. The Levites, the son of Jeshua, Kadmiel, the sons of Hedaviah, 74. So then you have the singers. I love this. The singers get recognized for their role in the temple. In verse 41, the singers, the son of Asaph, 128. And then you have the gatekeepers. The sons of the gatekeepers, verse 42, the sons of Shallum, the sons of Atar, the sons of Talmon, the sons of Akub, the son of Hetiah, and the sons of Shebiah, 139 in all. I love this. When you see they go back, everyone's got a role to play. And they are known by the role that they expect to play. And what's interesting is, it's the role their grandfathers, great-grandfathers, it's the role that God had given their families throughout time. In verse 64, it tells us the number again. In verse 64, it says the whole assembly together was 42,360. Besides their male and female servants, of whom there were 7,337, and they had 200 men and women singers. I love this. There's a group of singers that are in the temple, but there's a whole other group of singers that was just a part of the group. It's just one of my favorite little pictures there. Everywhere somebody took the entertainment, they brought the singers with them. The third thing we see is this. They didn't just count the people, they also counted the animals. It was important. Everything was important to them. This is what they come back with. This is what their kids and grandkids and great-grandkids and generations that follow, this is what they're going to say. And they only took so many animals. Look at verse 66. Their horses were 736, their mules 245, their camels 435, and their donkeys 6,720. Now, it's kind of funny to me. There's a lot more donkeys than there were anything else. I don't know what that says about the people of God, but I think it might be a message in that somewhere. And then finally, the thing that we notice in this section is this. They come back to inherit the land. They come back to rebuild the temple is the main goal. That's what Cyrus's proclamation was all about. And when you see the 42,360 return, you think, man, if they all pitched in, they could rebuild that temple in a hurry. But that's not what happened. Once they got back in the promised land, people kind of went their own way. They went to their own cities. That is a way of saying they went to their own lives. In verse 68, some of the heads of the fathers' houses, when they had come to the house of the Lord, which is in Jerusalem, offered freely for the house of God to erect it in its place. According to their ability, they gave to the treasury for the work 61,000 gold drachmas, 5,000 minas of silver, and 100 priestly garments. So the priests and the Levites, some of the people, the singers, the gatekeepers, and the Nathim dwelt in the cities, and all of Israel in their cities. In other words, if you worked in the temple, they expected you to rebuild the temple. I guess they thought someone else was going to do the work. Is that not the way church is sometimes? Here it is, we're all pitching in together and everybody's willing to let someone else do the work. I want to tell you, you will never accomplish great things for God as a church until you come together with a focused work. Instead of just looking at your own lives, focused on what God is doing. It takes them hundreds of years to rebuild this temple and the walls and the cities. It could have been done much faster if God's people had just joined together and gotten the task done first and then gone to their lives. But instead, they all kind of moved away to what was important to them. As Christians, it's important that we not just support the church with our finances and with our prayers. Sometimes we need to come together and work together to accomplish great things for God. Thank you for watching. I hope you have a great week.